Grandmaster Nightfalls are back, and this is actually the best week to farm. First up, the Adept drop this week is the brand new Scintillation Linear Fusion Rifle, which is the focus of our video here today. But on top of that, it's double Nightfall loot this week, meaning you're getting double the Adept drops along with 2 exotics and double the materials. It's also double Vanguard rep week. Literally the best time to ever farm Grandmaster Nightfalls in the history of Grandmaster Nightfalls. But today we're looking at Scintillation, as it is a new Strand 3-round burst adaptive frame linear fusion rifle that Bungie has given some very spicy rolls to. Now keep in mind guys, these are the same 3-round burst aggressive frames, they've just been renamed to adaptive bursts. Still the same damage. However, Bungie did give it an ease of use buff with the launch of the final shape, as Bungie reduced the firing animation kick and the recoil, making them feel a lot better to use now. With all that being said though, let's jump into the perks of this linear fusion. In column 3 we have Envious Assassin, rapid hits, rewind rounds, slice, corner, and auto-loading holster. In our 4th column, we have surrounded, hatchling, reservoir burst, bait and switch, firing line, and attrition orbs. Now, as you can see, this linear is absolutely juiced with great perks. And I'm going to start by breaking down column 4 first, as there are some pretty unique options. First up, we can't gloss over bait and switch. Again, dealing damage with all equipped weapons within a short time gives this weapon a damage boost. This is a 30% damage buff that lasts for 10 seconds after dealing damage with all equipped weapons within 7 seconds of each other. The enhanced version of this allows for this buff to last for 11 seconds. It's a good perk, guys. Even though it got nerfed a few months back, where it used to give a 35% damage buff, in terms of just total damage and the ease of just self-proccing it for yourself, bait and switch is hard to beat. On top of that, Scintillation is the first 3-round burst linear fusion rifle that can roll with bait and switch. Up until the final shape, no other linear had access to this besides the Valve the Disciple linear fusion rifle Cataclysmic. But that's a different archetype. And the other thing is, Cataclysmic and other raid weapons would sit high on their horse with their craftable rolls and their enhanced perks. But that's not the case anymore, because you can enhance Scintillation, literally leveling it up and giving it enhanced perks. So these weapons are 1-to-1, and in some cases even better than those raid craftable weapons, as you can get adept versions of these weapons, enhance the perks, and still apply adept mods. Now, another reason why bait and switch is really good when paired with Scintillation is because of its burst fire nature. You see, bait and switch immediately procs on the first shot of the burst, meaning the follow-up 2 shots in that burst, they get the damage buff. Whereas Cataclysmic, you do 1 shot, that procs bait and switch, but it's a single shot from this linear, and every shot afterwards will get the buff. Now at base, Scintillation here is dealing 73,224 damage against Coral. Our first shot that procs bait and switch deals 87,868 damage. That's with the 2 shots out of that 3-round burst getting that buff and damage. Then with all 3 shots getting that buff, it's 95,190 damage per burst. Now I believe this is probably going to be the perk many of you are going to want, but there are other solid options. We've got Surrounded, which states that this weapon gains bonus damage when 3 or more enemies are in close proximity. Now this is quite a bit of damage, and higher than bait and switch, being a 40% increase at base and a 47% increase on the enhanced version. Now I didn't get a surrounded roll, but I do of course have Briars, which is a 3-round burst that you can also get with enhanced surrounded, and that cranks out 107,631 damage per burst. Again, the problem with surrounded though is you have to depend on ads being around you, and I would say back in the day this may not have been as big of an issue. Most people would drop a Well of Radiance and they're good. But these days, I would be a little more cautious when popping a well while completely surrounded by enemies. Now we also have the perk Firing Line. This allows you to deal increased precision damage when near 2 or more allies. Now this is a good perk. It doesn't require any type of priming. You simply just gotta be next to 2 allies, and it's a 20% increase in damage. There's an enhanced version of Firing Line, but that simply just grants us +10 handling when Firing Line is active. Now the perk that was also very intriguing is Reservoir Burst. This is normally a fusion rifle perk, not a linear fusion rifle perk. Essentially though, when the battery is full, that being your magazine, your next burst deals additional damage and causes enemies to explode on death. Now this is a 25% increase in damage when that mag is full. Now additionally, this also passively grants 30 mag size stats, which gives us 1 extra shot in the mag, with the enhanced version of this perk just giving us +5 stability. Again, this perk is interesting, but its damage bonus isn't quite as high as things like bait and switch or even surrounded, and it falls off the moment you dip below your full magazine size. Now you could use this alongside perks like Envious Assassin, which is present in the 3rd column, and this overflows your magazine. And so for the top half of that mag, mag after you procced Envious Assassin, you would get that full 25% damage buff. But keep in mind, the moment you do drop below that point, you lose that entire 25% damage buff. So you gotta weigh the pros and cons on that. With that being said though, this takes us to column 3. What is the best perks to pair with our damage perks? First up, we have Envious Assassin. We're defeating targets with other weapons before drawing this one transfers ammo to the magazine from reserves. Now this effect can overflow the mag based on the number of targets defeated. Now this allows you to overflow your mag up to a maximum of 200%, with each activation only overflowing up to 100%. So you essentially need to pull it back out, proc it, and then stow it, continue getting kills. And again, primary weapons net you 10% ammo per kill, where special weapons net you 20% ammo per kill. So really just running around with a special weapon, snagging kills is the best way to overflow with Envious Assassin. Now the enhanced version of this simply allows for primaries and your special weapons to net you a higher percentage. So instead of 10% from primaries, it's 12.5%. Specials go from 20 to 22.5%. Now here on Scintillation, with 6 shots at base, with something like enhanced battery, this allows you to overflow 18 shots into the magazine. It's a very easy pairing, guys. In just about every DPS phase, you can have this on the ready. You can imagine in things like Salvation's Edge, the final encounter, this is going to be a great linear fusion rifle for that encounter, and it's going to be easy to proc Envious Assassin. Now we also have rewind rounds. It reads, when this weapon's magazine is empty, it refills from reserves based on the number of hits. Now this is very unique on this archetype of linear. Again, this is a burst fire linear, meaning more shots. Essentially though, this refills 60% of the magazine based on the number of hits that are landed. The enhanced version refills 70% based on the amount of hits landed, which is very nice. Testing this out on Scintillation, I was able to fire 12 shots before needing to reload, which is very impressive. Now this is before you factor in the origin trait, which yes, will also aid into that, and we'll cover that in just a moment. Now auto-loading holster is also present here if you're running and gunning. It simply just auto-reloads your weapon. This is mainly really good if you're in a DPS scenario. Maybe you're doing like Izanagi swaps, or really just swapping to any other weapon to burn some shots with. I think this is going to be beneficial for my folks that are rocking things like Still Hunt. Now, could you use things like rapid hits? You could. Slice also exists here for severing targets, but in my opinion, I think the other options are just better. Why worry about a perk that's going to boost your reload speed like rapid hit when you have perks that literally say, hey, you never have to reload? Now, the other perk that I want to bring up is a very unique one here, and that one is called Corner. This essentially gives you faster charge time when surrounded by combatants. Now, it's a 15% increase in charge rates within 15 meters of 2 or more enemies. Here's the thing though, you're running into the same situation as you were with Surrounded. What's the ease of use of proccing this perk? On top of that, when we tested this out ourselves, it was only a 4-frame difference in charge rate, with the enhanced version only giving you +10 stability while the perk was active. Now, my assumption to why Corner is not showing a huge amount of benefit is because the charge time on this thing is already really fast. I mean, it's 533. So the point I'm trying to make is 15% decrease in charge time isn't as potent on this charge speed versus a much higher charge speed, therefore netting you a bigger benefit from that 15%. And I'm sure there's some levels to what's being capped here. The point is, at least for Scintillation, Corner really was in the play. Now, before we go over the God roll, we've got to talk about these origin traits. This is a Veist weapon, therefore it has access to the Veist Stinger origin traits. Essentially, damaging an enemy with this weapon has a small chance to reload the magazine and increase movement speed while aiming down sights. Now, when activated, this is going to refill 25% of your mag from reserves, and on linears, there seems to be about a 10% chance each hit to refill with a 4-second cooldown between activations. This is easily the origin trait to rock on this linear. Now keep in mind, Veist Stinger has some complications with certain perks. For instance, Envious Assassin. It doesn't quite work with Envious. You see, the portion of the magazine that is overflowed, Veist Stinger doesn't proc. It's only at base that it's working. With that being said though, rewind rounds works perfectly with Veist Stinger. And we went in with rewind rounds and tested this with max reserves, and fellas, you can literally blow your load. The synergy between rewind rounds and Veist Stinger is truly incredible. Now I know you have other origin traits. Vanguard's Vindication is here. Stunning Recovery is also here. But let's be real, guys. It's Veist Stinger all day long. Now let's touch on DPS values. Now we will probably be doing some live testing this week. I'm still locking down the God roll. A lot of these are just simulated and calculated just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. But let's start with this Scintillation that has Envious plus bait and switch. Our total damage would be 1,786,644 damage with a DPS value of 50,140. Now Envious plus Surrounded, our total damage of course would be more, but against Surrounded it, it's tougher to keep up, but that would crank out to 2,044,989 damage with a DPS value of 17,316. Now here's the thing about Adept rolls that makes them way better than just normal rolls. You can get them with double perks, meaning you can have Cornered as a swap buff. Again, I just talked about it that I didn't like Cornered on its own, but similar to how we use Edge Transit, where we proc Envious Assassin and then go into our weapon on one of our old shining drops and then change it over to Cascade Point. You can do the exact same thing here with Scintillation. You can proc Envious Assassin, then proceed to overflow your magazine by 200%, then go into the weapon and select Cornered. And if you pair this with bait and switch, the total damage here of course stays the same, but our DPS value goes up just slightly to 52,886. Again, like I said earlier, Cornered isn't a big needle mover, but it is an option. Now, if you're in an environment where you're proccing Cornered, then you're most likely in an environment that can proc Surrounded. And if you pair the two together with an Envious swap off, that would actually keep the same total damage value, but increase our DPS to 74,094. Now, that's a lot of things that you're having to do and a lot of hoops you're having to jump through, and you definitely don't have to go that route, which is simply simulating the numbers. Then looking at rewind routes. This accomplishes a similar goal as Envious Assassin because paired with Veist Stinger, it allows us to shoot our entire reserves with only needing to stop for things like bait and switch. But of course, if you're rocking things like firing line, you could literally just blow your load all the way through. Now, I say a similar goal though, because with Envious Assassin, we only have 18 shots that are overflowed. So we did have to reload once. Now, as mentioned earlier, Veist Stinger and Envious, they conflict as they will not refill your ammo if you are currently overflowed, which is why I think rewind rounds in combination with Veist Stinger is just better. So for instance, rewind rounds plus bait and switch and proccing Veist Stinger, we get the total damage value still the same, but because of not needing to reload and just simply needing to reproc bait and switch, our DPS actually goes up to 55,457 damage. And if you did rewind rounds plus surrounded with Veist Stinger, our DPS is 76,735. Now, the reason why I'm bringing all this up, guys, is because you don't have to go through the hoops of proccing Envious Assassin, then swapping over to Cornered, and doing what we've done before in the past multiple times with Edge Transit. But Cascade Point Edge Transit is a noticeable difference. On top of that, Veist Stinger conflicts with Envious Assassin, which is why I think here, guys, just going rewind rounds, Veist Stinger, bait and switch, and if you want to swap out bait and switch for, say, surrounded, if you can keep that up, by all means, go ahead. But the damage here is very good, and on top of that, the ease of use is much better. Now, if we compare this to our other linear fusion rifles, for instance, Briar's Contempt with reconstruction and surrounded, our total damage is pretty much the same here at 2,044,989, as it also is a 3-round burst, but our DPS is only 66,359 compared to Scintillation's 76,735. Cataclysmic with 4 times the charm and bait and switch, the standard for so long now, only had a total damage value of 1,266,288 and a DPS value of 50,051. Scintillation here is pulling ahead in both DPS and in total damage. And despite Cataclysmic being somewhat close in terms of DPS, its total damage is a whopping 500,000 less than what Scintillation is putting out, which is pretty crazy. The only weapon that might actually have a chance here is Briar's Contempt, and that's if you're going against like Lucent Hive, you're proccing Harmonic Resonance. But hell, guys, at that point, we'll just throw Unraveling Rounds into the mix, and Scintillation will greatly take off, which is why I want to get the God roll this week so we can do live testing over on Templar. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is Scintillation's ability to apply Adept Mods. It's a good chance you're doing the Grandmaster Nightfall this week. You probably have a few Adept rolls, and again, you can take those ciphers, go right there to Zavala, turn those 10 in for another Adept roll. Now, spec mods have been deprecated, so pretty much everyone is going to be using backup mag, or in this case, Adept mag. Now, Adept mag doesn't look like it does anything or any more than regular backup mag. However, when you pair Adept backup mag with enhanced battery, this increases your mag size to 7. It's not super necessary with things like Veist Stinger, but what this really means is you don't have to go the route of ionized battery, which kills your reload, although you're not really reloading, especially with the God roll, but it does kill your reload speed and thus allow you to increase your mag size all the way to 7 with Adept mag and enhanced battery. And by the way, if you're checking this out on any APIs like D2 Foundry or LightGG, it's kind of buggy. Just go check it out in game. You'll understand where I'm coming from, guys. With that being said, though, the other Adept mod mod to consider is Adept charge time. This, of course, drops the charge time just slightly for our linear fusion. It's not that noticeable. We're talking a couple frames difference. With that being said though, if you're looking for the best performance, Adept charge time is probably going to be the mod many of you need to choose. Keep in mind, you don't need that super increase in your mag size all the way up to 7 to shoot all of your reserves. With that being said, what is the god roll? For me personally, guys, it's rewind rounds and bait and switch. That pairing with Veist Stinger, the ease of use, the damage buff, the self-procking, being able to literally shoot forever without needing to reload is amazing. All you have to worry about is re-procking bait and switch. Now, I'm not saying Envious Assassin isn't a bad pick either. All I'm saying is that rewind rounds on this particular archetype with Veist Stinger literally trivializes damage phases. You can just sit there and lay on the trigger for as long as you want. And since Envious and Veist Stinger conflict, rewind rounds is just the go-to choice. Now, should you use something over bait and switch? Well, you can. And that really just comes down to you. Do you like firing line more? Do you not want to proc bait and switch? Do you prefer surrounded? Are you in an environment that you can proc surrounded? You most definitely can choose other perks. And that's going to be situational depending on whatever it is you're doing. Regardless though, Scintillation is a top tier linear fusion. And for me, guys, I'm looking for that enhanced battery roll with Adept charge time, with also a charge time masterwork, rewind rounds, and a combination of either bait and switch and surrounded. If we land that roll this week, guys, I promise you we'll be doing some live testing to really compare this weapon to all of our other linear fusions, but also to just other top tier weapons amongst our best DPS options, just to kind of get a frame of reference. With that being said though, this is a great weapon. It's Strand. We haven't even talked about unraveling rounds, which could easily stack on even more damage here, considering that this is a Strand weapon. It's a 3-round burst, and it's only a legendary. Listen, I love weapons like Euphony, and the beautiful thing is you can rock double Strand linears. You could literally use Euphony simultaneously with Scintillation if you so wish. So guys, that is our review. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.